Hey everybody, it's Professor Malat. As we get deeper into the rhetorical analysis unit, it's important that you understand what the objective for this unit is. So I wanted to take some time to explain this rhetorical analysis project assignment. Let me share my screen with you, and you will see this is the assignment that shows up in week 6, I believe, for the rough draft. The instructions, of course, for the revised draft will be exactly the same, except, fix the things that need to be fixed based on my feedback as well as any peer response that you get. So let's take a look at the assignment overview. This project asks you to apply what you've learned, choosing one of the several available texts. Deeply consider and deconstruct the writer's or the speaker's argument and show how they have used or failed to use effective rhetoric to persuade their intended audience. So, as you will begin to see, we are approaching each of those 5 project or topical areas with those 5 main questions. What is happiness? What makes people happy? Can we create our own happiness? Do we deserve happiness? And does technology make us happier? And I've selected readings, articles and websites, and even some videos, speeches and whatnot, to help you look at things from a different perspective. So again, we are kind of expanding our definition of what a text is. It's not always words on a page or words on a screen. It can often involve things like visual elements, whether that's moving videos or whether it's still visuals, as well as sound, right? Sound can include the spoken word. It can also include music and sound effects and that kind of thing, depending on what you decide to analyze. So I want you to think about something happiness-based as you start to think about a text that you would like to analyze. It could be a speech. It could be one of the articles that you have read or a few of the articles that you have read in these weeks leading up to the project. It could be an advertisement. It could be a music video. It's really kind of, I want you to kind of widen your ideas of what you want to analyze, right? Based on your interests, based on these questions that perhaps have intrigued you. So if, for example, you read something in week 5 or week 6 related to technology, and maybe you kind of have an interest in social media and you want to analyze maybe some influencers campaign and how they are effective in their use of language, in their use of rhetoric to persuade a particular target audience. So you're going to be thinking about things like audience and purpose and context, right? As well as the writer or the speaker or the creator themselves. So you have some flexibility as far as what you can analyze. You're going to check in with me and I will let you know whether or not it's an acceptable piece that you can analyze. But you also have some flexibility about how to approach this assignment. So you could write a traditional essay. If you take that option, it should be about 1,000 to 1,200 words, which usually works out to be about 4 to 5 pages, usually 4.5 to 5 pages. If you decide you want to do like a slide presentation or maybe even some kind of a video, if you're creative and you like working in that kind of medium, you're welcome to do that. Aim for your presentation to be about 10 minutes in length. If it's a slide presentation with some kind of voiceover, you want to aim for about 10 slides. And if you want to present something that everybody can see, please let me know. I am happy to provide you with that outlet. If it's only for me to look at, that's fine. Then you can just upload it as it is, or provide me with a website if you're hosting a video or something like that. But try to keep it about the 10-minute mark because let's face it, I am one person doing all the grading for 3 different classes. So I have a multitude of things to review in these first first unit. Words are escaping me. So while you might opt for a traditional essay, you can have some flexibility as far as how you want to present it. So the Rhetorical Analysis Project will also have an accompanying one-page written rationale in which students reflect on the choices that went into the project. So for the rationale, I want you to start thinking about the purpose of the project, the form that you chose, that could be the medium or the genre that you have chosen for the project, the audience that project is directed toward. Remember, I am not going to be your sole focus, your sole audience. I want you to start thinking in broader terms. What type of audience would you like to reach? Who do you want to persuade as a writer or a speaker? Not just me, right? You also have your peers to consider, but think also if you do a really excellent job, you might be your work might be shown to other classes, right? Or it may be submitted for a contest. Think a little bit broader than just the context that we're in right here in this online class. So for your rationale, think about that kind of thing: the purpose, your genre, the genre, the audience it's directed toward, and the rhetorical choices that you have made in creating the project. So essentially, that rationale is kind of your argument about the project's purpose and effectiveness, about your own project, right? Not the effectiveness of the text. That's the analysis part. And the rationale is how well did you do your job as a writer or a speaker, right? So the purpose here, again, in these first few weeks, we're seeking to develop your understanding of how language is used to influence beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors. Remember, it is a very deliberate and often a very intentional choice that we make as writers, as speakers, as people who communicate. And if you come away from this class understanding that, then I feel like I've done a pretty decent job at having you understand the rhetorical situation and how rhetoric works in our everyday encounters. This project asks you to examine how and why a text is put together and what effects its rhetorical components might have on an audience. By understanding and employing rhetoric, you will be engaged to engage with texts of all sorts, both within and beyond college. Remember, we are looking for skills that can transfer out into the wider world, out beyond our academic setting. How can you use these skills to help you in your future careers, in your future lives as citizens of the world, right? So it's an important type of thing. You're engaging critically with text, you're thinking critically with text, and you are writing or speaking critically, right? So one key thing that I want to emphasize that when you might remember from your high school English classes that you had to do all these readings of literature and you had to do these analysis papers where you would try to figure out what the theme is and the symbolism and all of those various literary terms. That is not what we're doing in this project. Instead, we are thinking how and why somebody uses language in a particular way, right? And it's most easily understood in the context of advertising. So if you want to go in that direction, that can be a really easy way to figure out what to do for a rhetorical analysis, how they use the various rhetorical appeals, ethos, pathos, logos, kairos, that kind of thing, as well as those aspects of writer, speaker, audience, purpose, so on and so forth, right? So we have some options here, requirements. Again, I've reiterated that already. I also have a couple of links here for MLA format guidelines. If it's been a while since you've been in school, you might need a little bit of a refresher on MLA formatting, what an MLA sample paper looks like. But for these specifics here, it's asking that you explore how a text is designed to affect its audience in certain ways. So think of that analysis as kind of a behind the scenes exploration of the writers or the speaker's rhetorical choices. What were they thinking when they created that piece, that text? So your essay or your project should employ specific evidence from that text you have chosen to analyze. Examples of evidence can include an analysis of tone. It could be some sources, visual elements, the various rhetorical appeals, how it's organized, context, audience, and genre. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that you can take a look at. I do want to take a moment to take a look at the criteria for the draft. Here, I will be looking specifically writing-wise at your introduction, making sure that you have a fairly solid thesis that will help to drive the reader through your piece, right? The reader or the audience, I should say, right? Shame on me. That thesis will help to drive the audience through your work, right? Whether it's an essay or whether it's a presentation. When you have a strong introduction and you have a solid thesis, it makes everything else that follows a lot more easy for your audience to understand. So that's one thing I'm going to be looking for. Secondly, I'll be looking at the rhetorical analysis. So I will be making sure that you're aware of the rhetorical situation, such as the writer or speaker or the creator, the audience, the purpose, the context, genre, so on and so forth, as well as how that text has employed certain rhetorical appeals. Now remember, a text doesn't always use all of the rhetorical appeals, but there may be one or two that really stand out. It could be that a speech depends on the use of pathos to engage the emotions of the audience. Whereas, you know, if it's something that's a little bit more data driven, there's going to be an emphasis on logos, right? And perhaps on ethos. So that's up to you to figure out and to incorporate into your project. If you do a really great job, it means that the source text is thoroughly and effectively contextualized with well-supported analysis of structure, the rhetorical situation, and the rhetorical appeals. Again, it's a draft. I don't expect it to be perfect, but you get the idea here. I'm also going to be looking for organization, right? Each paragraph or each slide should make sense where you have it in the presentation, right? So it's going to examine one main idea. It's not going to be all over the place, right? And will contain appropriate reasoning for that idea. Ideas are presented in a logical pattern with clear transitions. Again, if you're doing a slide presentation, you've got to make sure that it flows together so that it makes the most sense, right? If you're writing an essay, then you know that's a little bit more familiar. You should know a bit about transitions and how to flow from one idea to the next. Next, I'm going to be looking at audience awareness, that you're writing with an audience in mind. You're not just writing for me, but you're writing for a greater audience, and to make sure that you're engaging the audience's interest throughout the project, right? You don't want to start off strong and then suddenly peter out, because the chances of your reader or your audience staying with you diminishes, right? If you start to lose energy. So you want to have a sustained effort, make sure that the audience is continually engaged and interested in what you are saying so that they can reach the conclusion, right? And lastly, I'll be looking at, of course, language use and mechanics, things like grammar, punctuation, spelling, formatting, any kind of MLA nitpicky things. Again, I'm not taking off points, but you will see that the divisions here are, if you have done a superb job on your presentation or your essay, it will be marked distinctive. That means that you have very, very few errors, right? I'm not your copy editor. I will point out a few mistakes, but it's really up to you to proofread carefully and to edit anything that you submit for any of your classes. Satisfactory means you've done a pretty decent job on editing. with very few problems using academic English. Needs some work. Perhaps you didn't take the time to proofread, and it shows that there are several errors per paragraph in spelling, so on and so forth. Sometimes some students really need a lot of work, right? They might have the ideas there, but it's a real slog to get through them because there are so many errors in spelling or in grammar, word order, all of that kind of stuff. And of course, if it's missing, that usually means that the student failed to submit a draft. That goes with all of the other categories here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different areas where I will be looking and evaluating your project to make sure that you are on the right track with your draft. So let me go back to the syllabus. No, actually, no, I'm not going to go back to the syllabus because everything that you need is on this page. Again, it's in week 6. So if it hasn't been opened yet, while you're watching this video, it will be opened up. Week 6 will be opened up in the coming weeks. So keep a lookout for it. You can, of course, always go into assignments and take a look at the various assignments, but the modules themselves are locked down just because it gives me an opportunity to prepare lecture material and that kind of things if I need to record or re-record something for you. I like to do that before I open up the modules. That way you're not missing out on any important information. So if you have any questions about this project, please don't hesitate to ask me for clarifications. And things will become more evident as we progress through the unit. So if it's week 3 and you're looking at the overview of this project, things will make a little bit more sense as we get through the rest of the unit. I will post this video on the Rhetorical Analysis Project draft page, so it will look a little bit different. I will have it embedded at the top of the page before the assignment overview. That way, if you need to come back and watch it, you don't have to go figure out where it is. It's right there on the assignment page, but it will also be included in week 3, just to give you a heads up, right? So that you can plan out your course. And so when you know that you have a project due and it needs to be taken seriously and you have to meet a certain page count or a certain number of slides that you will need to create, then you know well ahead of time, and you can hopefully plan out your work so that you're not overwhelmed and scrambling at the last minute, right? Okay, so that is that. Again, as I said, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. That's why I'm here. You aren't trying to figure things out on your own. And again, don't feel embarrassed by asking what, if it's like a stupid question or something like that. There are no stupid questions. Okay, take care, everybody. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.